Today, I'm joined by a phenomenal real estate broker, highly successful. She's also a consultant, a serial entrepreneur, and somewhat of a media celebrity. Dana Flanagan joins the podcast. Dana, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you on here. This is a conversation I've really been looking forward to. You've had a really dynamic career, and there's a lot to cover. And we're going to try to just kind of hit the broad strokes in this conversation, but I'm really excited to have you on. So thank you for your time.
Oh, well, thank you.
Dana, before we dive into the work that you're doing, share for the listeners a little bit of your background, hometown, education, previous careers, if any, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Connecticut, Glastonbury, Connecticut, and was and still am a top producing realtor there. Started in real estate pretty young. Came right out of, I actually went to college for about a year and always knew I wanted to be a realtor. So I left college and started in real estate. Also, got a job in the hotel industry and worked my way up because obviously, it takes a little time to get started in real estate. And I quickly found that, a real key for me at the time, being so young and full of energy, was the tremendous amount of customer service and time that I had to be able to dedicate to my clients. Um, Fast forward to kind of like where we are now. I mean, I've done everything from residential to commercial, luxury market, first time home buyers. Towards the later part of my career and still now, I started to look more towards luxury, and that was kind of tough in central Connecticut. It just really isn't a huge market for that. So I got my license in Florida and started doing business down in the Fort Lauderdale area. And that was a kind of a game changer for me. We got a place down there and I started going back and forth almost every week and really immersed myself in the community, created relationships, which is such a key in this business. And, there's so many people that say to me, oh, I just want to, I'm going to sell high-end homes. And it's not that easy. And you can be a top producer and think that's going to be your market. But those people already know people that either know a realtor or they have a friend or they have a trusted resource that they're going to go to. So although I was, with the experience that I have, which is 22 years of real estate, I went down to Florida and really, took my time, but also, I didn't think it was going to be super easy, but I honestly didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was. Very saturated market. Everyone's got connections and relationships. I was new to the area and it really took some time. So what I did do is I met a couple high net worth individuals, and a few of them owned a family office. And for people that don't know what a family office is, it is a private entity that high net worth individuals have to basically house all their businesses. And tried to put that into layman's terms for people that don't know. It is generally for individuals that have a net worth of 25 million or more. And it can be one family, it can be multiple families, but they generally have they keep everything private. That's how they create generational wealth for their children and their children's children. And so these tend to be obviously wealthy individuals. And I became friends with a couple of people that had a family office, and I noticed that there was a piece missing in their family office for a real estate advisor. They have a in-house CPA, an in-house attorney, a chief of staff, whatever, they're running a whole business and they don't have a real estate advisor. So I created a global real estate advisor, white glove service concierge, basically position for family offices around the country and around the world. And so that put me in front of a lot of high net worth individuals and got me in front of people that I would have never gotten in front of before. So that was how I created my niche to get into the luxury market. It wasn't necessarily going after this listing or that listing. It was, how am I going to set myself apart differently than every other realtor that's calling these listings or calling expireds or, sending their mailers out or whatever they're doing. And what it led me to is larger projects like resorts, hotels, developments worldwide. And many people will say, well, how can you sell something in Spain, or how can you sell something in Turks and Caicos? And it's a lot of these are off market. So they are bringing buyer and seller together and creating like a happy partnership between buyer and seller. And what happened was a lot of these people were looking for funding. They needed another, $100 million to complete their project. And so I was going around trying to find people that could fund these projects. And so I taught myself private equity venture capital and created another business basically where, we procure the funding for these projects worldwide. So, in addition to real estate, I now work with my partner, Drew, at Onyx Elite Consulting, and we bridged our skill sets together, and we provide full service consulting, branding, operations support. We have in-house legal counsel if people need it, promotions, marketing, business development, and we provide the funding for startups and projects into the billions around the world. So that's where it led me. And I didn't think it was going to lead me there. I thought I'd be selling these, nice luxury homes in South Florida. And I've had my share of listings, but I'm doing something that's actually, for me, it's more fun. And then in the midst of all this, we moved to Lake Norman, North Carolina from Connecticut. So we got my license in North Carolina and really immersing myself in the community in the greater Charlotte area, and also where we live in a town called Cornelius. And we love the lake life. It's been our dream. And, we enjoy the water sports and wake surfing and boating. So that's what we've been doing the last year. And of course, I'm going to try to tackle another niche market there. And I do a lot with sports and entertainment and celebrities and professional athletes. And I always, have done that for the last few years. So it's a big NASCAR area. And, that's the market that I'm focused on right now.
Big NASCAR area, a lot of professional sports teams as well in the Charlotte area as well. And yeah, a lot to unpack there. You've really, like, this surprised me. We've talked leading up to this conversation, and I knew that you had your hands full for sure. But wow, really a global broker, a massive project matchmaker,
Mhm.
these builders and funders, and builders with funding and that sort of thing, or investors with funding. Um, I would love to back up a little bit and ask you, one of the reasons I really wanted to get you on this podcast, I was really looking forward to this conversation, was to get your insights for selfishly for me, but also for listeners who might be, obviously broker's dream of working in the luxury space. Fewer transactions, much higher per transaction value, but and obviously it's just inspiring and enjoyable to work with these magnificent homes and properties. I was curious, what advice you might have for brokers who want to work their way into the luxury market. You mentioned something really interesting, that the concept of connecting with a family law office. I have a sponsor for another platform that is a family law office. Family office. Uh, how can I ask you? How did you meet this first family office? How did you connect with this family?
Yeah, so this was actually an introduction from another friend in South Florida. And, again, it's all about relationships.
Hmm.
So they made an introduction for me and thought that it might be, there might be some synergies there, or perhaps, I could also send they do a lot of consulting work on the tax side of things for high net worth individuals. So they thought it would be a great reciprocal referral connection for me. And, the first meeting I remember, they gave me about 10 minutes of their time. I drove an hour up to their office, and, they're very, very busy. They came out, they were, nice, pleasant, but almost too busy to be meeting with me.
Hmm.
And so, I send up follow-up, thank you for your time. And check back in, let them know what I'm up to, and letting people know what value you bring to them, because that is what people care about. What can you do for me? And always lead with value. Don't ask anybody for anything. Create those relationships first, because that builds trust and rapport. And that's really what it takes in that market, and really in any market. I mean, luxury or not, people work with who they know, like, and trust.
Mm.
And you want to get into a certain group, or you want to get into a certain demographic. You need to put yourself in that position to be around those people. And what is that going to take? Living in Connecticut for as long as I did, which was pretty much my entire life up until a couple months ago. It's not exactly a hustling and bustling metropolis. It's not like Miami. It's not like Dallas. It's not like Chicago or New York City. It's a different demographic, and that's okay. But I wanted more, and I wanted to get out of that bubble, and I wanted to be around people that are doing really big things. And that took me going elsewhere to find that. And I know for a lot of people that doesn't sound realistic. Oh gosh, you just jumped on a plane every week and went back and forth. Um, it was a commitment for sure. And it was a lot of back and forth, and it was a lot of time, going there by myself and setting up a ton of meetings. I remember I flew there for a big meeting, and I really didn't want to go that week. I think it was like beautiful weather in Connecticut and we wanted to enjoy it. And I think I was missing something that I wanted to go to. And I remember the person canceled on me when I landed. And that was like just that feeling of like defeat, and just like, oh, and the money I spent on the tickets, and you take those steps back a lot. And that's what people don't talk about, is the failing forward. It's
Hmm.
the constant door slamming in your face. It's the constant, this didn't work. Now what? Um, it's You really have to be resilient. And as an entrepreneur, and you are in real estate, you are an entrepreneur. Whether everybody works for a brokerage firm unless you're your own broker and you have your own brokerage. And you are an entrepreneur. You have to be self-motivated every single day. You have to be consistent. You have to build relationships, and you have to put yourself into places that you're going to meet people that you want to work with and conduct business with. And that's a really important piece that I think a lot of people don't. They think they're just going to send a flyer. They're just going to pick up the phone and call them. And there's nothing special about that. You
Yeah.
really you have to create yourself. Who are you? What's your brand? How are people going to perceive you? Those are things that people really need to think about.
You repeat the sentiment that real estate is a relationship business. That's a sentiment that has been shared by several of the other really highly successful brokers that I've had on this podcast. And I think it's worth underscoring for sure how important it is. And you mentioned, the flyer marketing, the calling expired listings, the postcards, great. But the term that came to mind while you were talking and describing your journey and your path to success in that market is referral partnerships, and
Mhm.
really connecting with individuals or groups who can connect you with many clients, or
Mhm.
the clients that you're really seeking to work with.
Mhm.
And another, that reminded me too, when you said that you mentioned that, being in the center, like you really need to live and to work in their world, you have to live in their world. And one of the brokers we had on recently said, if there's a neighborhood you want to dominate, I recommend you move to that neighborhood. And
True.
it's a commitment, right? And obviously it may seem far-fetched or unrealistic for a lot of newer brokers, but that might be something definitely worth considering for your long-term marketing, or your long-term business plan, is to, if there's a section of town or a neighborhood that you want to dominate, you would be well served to put yourself in that neighborhood and begin building those relationships. You used the term commitment. It's a huge commitment. you have to have patience. You have to work, 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 and it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. And the other thing you said that I loved was failing forward. And that
Mhm.
reminds me, every time somebody mentions that, that reminds me of one of my favorite biographies. It wasn't an autobiography, but it's a biography about Jeff Bezos called The Everything Store.
Mhm.
And I've listened to a lot of Jeff Bezos's keynote speeches. I've watched his interviews every chance I get. And something that he repeats over and over is that although he's had so many amazing successes, what people don't seem to recognize or understand are the number of failures that he's had along the way.
Mhm.
But the successes pay for those failures, thankfully. But it's, for probably every success, he's had hundreds, if not 1,000 failures in between. So anyway, a lot to unpack there. All of it was awesome. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. What about some practical tips for, getting tactical, understanding the strategy of, referral partnerships and being in the world of the market that you want to serve? Practically, from a tactical standpoint, what are some tips or advice you would have for brokers who want to move their business more into the luxury segment? What can they do, or what can they start doing?
Sure. Again, it all goes back to relationships. I think it's very important to have a specific niche that you can provide to those to that luxury clientele. What makes you different, and how are you going to get their property out there? And I'm going to give a couple of examples. Um, like I said, I just moved to the Lake Norman area in North Carolina. Didn't know really anybody. But I've done this before, right? I mean, I walk around Fort Lauderdale now. I run into people everywhere. And what I did is I joined a bunch of groups on Facebook before we moved. I introduced myself. I reached out to people, and what are some activities that you might do or that you might have in common? For us, we're big boaters and wake surfers. So I reached out in those activities and asked people, asked for advice, asked if anybody would be interested in getting together for wake surfing. Got tips from people, added value by commenting on certain people's posts. And I learned by watching all these things in these groups. um, I got involved on some of the networking groups online to find out what type of events, who are the people that host the events, what is their background. Reached out to them and asked them if they wanted to have a introductory Zoom, and let them know. I always have a little bio that I send people, and it's a friendly, hey, a little about me. It's a personal first, and then this is what I do in business, and this is how, I'd love to see if there's any synergies, right? So making the outreach to make a new friend or to make a new business connection. And again, don't go into it spewing what you do all over the place. Nobody likes that. I can't, one of the things I can't stand is the LinkedIn, when people connect with you and you hit accept, and then all of a sudden you've got, like, they're selling you something in their inbox. It drives me nuts. Because it's it's a system that they have, which is great, but it's so unauthentic to me. And people really hang on to authenticity. I think there's a few things that people need to really think about. And this can relate to real estate and also to other entrepreneurs out there. What is your brand? What do you stand for? Why do you do what you do? What is your why? So those are some really important things that can go across all industries, because if you don't know what your brand is, no one else is going to either. So that is a huge component that you need to, if you're a realtor, I know a lot of people say, one must, probably thinking, oh, well, I'm a realtor. Everybody knows what that is. No, what's your brand? Are you the mom boss? Like, you've got three little kids and you're killing it in real estate and you're catering to, the other mom clientele through PTOs and play groups and things like that. What is that, your brand? I mean, that is a brand for some people. I actually have a friend that called herself the mom boss, and she killed it. And she actually was on my team when she first started, and she left to open up her own brokerage at like 24 years old. And she had a young family, and she was just killing it because that was her little shtick, and everybody hung on to it. Are you the one of the guys on my team in South Florida? He's like major pickleball player. I play pickleball too, but he's like really, really good. And so that's his thing. He gets a lot of clients from pickleball. So, what's your brand, first of all? And what can you do to help people in that market? If you're not connected, it's really hard to sell. Like I said, I live in kind of NASCAR country, right? A lot of these NASCAR drivers and people that work at NASCAR live in my neighborhood. And again, this is a very large neighborhood, and a lot of these homes are gated. So you can't just go knock on the door and door knock, right? So what can I offer? Yes, am I not from the area? Definitely not. But what I can offer that some other agents can't offer is, number one, I have 22 years of experience, but even furthermore, I am very connected to celebrities, athletes, and their managers around the country. I go to a lot of events. I go to, MLB winter meetings. I go to NBA Summer League. I was at the Super Bowl this year, and those are all invites from my connections. I work with a worldwide sports and entertainment network that relocates sports professional athletes and celebrities around the country and around the world. And so I've taken the time to build those relationships within those groups. And that is what I can offer luxury clientele in the Lake Norman, Greater Charlotte area, is that my connections are worldwide, and they're with high net worth individuals, people that fly on private jets, people that own yachts, millionaires and billionaires. And those are the type of people that are going to be buying your home. Unfortunately, it's hard for people that are sort of stuck in their little hometown bubble that don't get out to that network, because it's just so much easier when you're connected, because people, again, know, like, and trust you. And so that attracts people to you. And, that is a major piece to getting in with that crowd, is creating the value that you bring. What is your value, and how can you lead with value when you are looking to get into the luxury market?
The 7 degrees of Dana Flanagan, she, that it's powerful and relevant that that you talk about the vast network that you've built of people who know people. And you may have a listing in your new hometown that someone in Fort Lauderdale who knows someone in Salt Lake who knows somebody in Dallas may be in the market for. So yeah, there's so much to that. I love that you brought up brand as well. That reminds me of one of the most successful brokers that I can think of, who I'm acquainted with. I don't know very well. We have a lot of mutual acquaintances, who specializes in the golf market.
Mhm.
And he brands himself as a golf property broker. And
Mhm.
of course, you're going to get and he spent decades building that brand, and
Mhm.
and it took a long time, but he's extremely successful.
Mhm.
And of course, when you brand yourself as a golf property broker, you're going to organically and naturally be connected with folks who have, uh, luxury homes for sale that aren't on golf courses.
Mhm. Mhm.
The other thing that, the pickleball niche, the boating niche is a great one.
Mhm.
You want to work with folks who are buying or selling waterfront homes, get to know boaters, buy
Yeah.
a boat,
Yeah.
you know,
It's very true.
it's an investment, right? It's totally an investment. High ticket, high trust is all about relationship. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And I would say to people that are trying to get into that market, it is going to take time, and it is exhausting. I have spent so much time just working for free, if you want to just, kind of call it that. Um, I remember when I was building my family office side of my business, I must have been on Zooms for like 6 months. I mean, nonstop Zooms. And yes, I was doing real estate transactions here and there in between, building relationships with people and getting connected. When I was teaching myself private equity, venture capital, raising capital, um, I was on Zooms all day, and it was exhausting. And you don't get paid for being on Zooms, at least initially, right? So it's led to selling hotels and working with major A-list celebrities on their brands. It's because now they have me branding their liquor that they have out or their wine, working with, heads of major hotel chains because they've seen what I do and the vast array of what I do, but also how connected I am with other people that will be utilizing whatever it is that they're selling. And so it's taken a lot of time working for free. You have to take a step back to kind of, propel yourself forward. And there's going to be a lot of times where you're, wondering if what you're doing is worth it and if you're ever going to see a result. And you have to stick with it, and you have to have, a lot of it comes down to mindset. And if you don't have your mindset right, this goes with anything. That is first and foremost. If you cannot redirect your energy after a big loss or a failure or someone slamming the door in your face or a deal falling apart, like, if we're in real estate, we've all had a deal fall apart. And it hurts a lot more when the commissions are 6 figures than if they're, 4 figures. And it's still a loss. And some people have a really hard time handling that and cannot get the train back on the tracks. And that is just, you have to look at, I don't count anything till it's closed. I never look at somebody as a meal ticket, so to speak. I always look at creating the relationship with them. And some people I don't want to create. I mean, I've met plenty of celebrities and professional athletes I want nothing to do with them. They're just jerks. You know what I mean? So it's not like I go around collecting these people. I create relationships with people that resonate with me. And I also say no to things that do not suit me, regardless of how much money is involved. I will not work with people I don't like. And I will not work with people that are disrespectful to me. And I don't care what the price tag is. I've fired multi-million-dollar sellers before. And there is a value that comes along with what I do. And you have to know your value and stand behind your value, because people will see when you don't trust yourself and you don't value yourself. And that comes across very apparent, especially to high net worth individuals. These are educated people. These are people that, are very busy, and they have a lot of people wanting things from them. So, you have to be very careful how you position yourself with people in that sector and people in business in general. I mean, it's a good rule of thumb to build relationships with people, networking, put yourself out there, use social media to let people know what you do. If you aren't putting yourself out there, no one's going to know what you do. Don't be a secret agent. And it's funny, I was at a branding seminar yesterday morning, and they were talking about, the questions in the audience were, how do you market yourself on social media without looking like you're bragging? Or what do they say? What do I say to get myself across? And nobody wants to see your next listing and your next listing and your next listing, and you're going on a listing. No one wants to see that over and over again. It's boring. They want to see you. They want to see what it is that you do to help people. What is the value that you bring? Again, what is your brand? Just throw a little bit of personal stuff in there. People want to relate to the people that they're working with. So that is what you want to put across on social media, is that authenticity, because people can tell when you're full of crap. And, it all goes together. I think, if you've listened to this entire podcast, the main takeaway is putting yourself out there, knowing your brand, and connecting with people, building relationships, and making sure that you set yourself up ahead of time to know that it's going to take time and it's going to be a commitment. And that's really what a lot of people don't have that's why this is the highest dropout industry in the world. 85% of realtors drop out in the first year, new licensed realtors. Why do you think that is? Because there's no immediate return. Everybody wants everything immediately, and there is no immediate turn. By the time you get your first listing, it's probably, maybe for the average realtor, 6 months. And by the time you close that, let's say it goes under contract and it's not in a crazy market, you're not closing something for almost a year for the most part. And so a lot of people it's too long for them to wait. It's not immediate instant gratification. And that is not what this business is. So I think it's really important to just kind of, know your why, focus on your brand, know who you are, know the value that you bring, and make sure that that comes across to the people that you're trying to work with and build relationships with.
Yeah, I think that's really worth emphasizing too, how important it is for someone who's coming into the industry or thinking about coming into the industry as a real estate broker, that especially in recent years, it's been made to look extremely easy, especially
Mhm.
with the social media marketing, which you mentioned, the I'm not going to go into great detail for my disdain and with the with the way most brokers market the closings and listings. There's just no value,
Mhm.
and I that getting back to, I think that's the best point of this conversation, and you brought a lot of value, is that the people that your future clients, your future uh, referral partners, you're going to have to start bringing value right away. You mentioned, get used to the concept of working for free for a little while.
Mhm.
Yeah, you really have to pay your dues. You gotta really bring a lot of value, become a resource and an asset for these referral partners and potential clients. Um, the other part I loved was that you have set up boundaries for yourself professionally. I think a lot of brokers have struggled with the idea that they want to say yes to everyone and they want to
Mhm.
work with everyone instead of
Mhm.
really narrowing down their target, really narrowing down, doubling down on a niche, which I advocate so much. I think it's so important to really focus on a niche market that you are really meant to serve
Mhm.
and that really interests you. One of the reasons why I became self-employed almost 20 years ago was because I really wanted the ability to choose who I worked with. And I wanted to, I only want to work with people that I like. And that's just, and it's when you work for someone else, you don't have that opportunity. You don't have that choice. As real estate brokers and entrepreneurs and folks who are self-employed, we have the option of firing ourselves. So but in order to, not say yes to everyone, you really have to be good with that niche. You really have to be good with the people that you're meant to serve.
Mhm.
Um, this has been awesome. I love that. I love the all the value that you brought to this, Dana. I really appreciate it. I uh, I know that we could spend so much more time talking about
Mhm.
so many other topics, and I'd love for you to circle back sometime in the future to have another conversation for the podcast. Before I let you go, can you recommend some resources for new agents who these could be motivational, inspirational, practical uh, resources for their real estate business? What are some recommendations?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm big on personal and professional development, whether that's reading, listening to an audiobook, going to seminars, um, getting involved locally and nationally. Put yourself in those positions to network with other agents because you're going to hear them talking and you're going to learn from them and you're going to be inspired. I can promise you that. So if you're with, a company that does a national, sales event, like I know Keller Williams has many, I know EXP does, I know Sotheby's does. I mean, they all do, national sales convention, whatever it is, go to it, invest in yourself, you've got to pay your own way, but go to these events because you're going to get so much more out of it. If that's not possible, I know Tony Robbins, who I am a big fan of, does virtual, um, he does some of his events virtually. So you can still join from, maybe you have small kids and it's just not possible to get out of the house. But I know he does virtual events, and there are many others as well that are great to follow. Sign up for some, Brian Buffini's another tried and true great resource for a new agent. It sets you up to do the daily things that you should be doing. Get in, read books, listen to audiobooks. When you have free time, what are you doing with your free time? Who are you spending your time with? Are those people emulating what and where you want to be? If not, you need to do a reevaluation of your relationships that are personal that may be impacting your ability to grow. Some books that I really like. The Secret is one of my favorite. I know that sounds funny because it's been around forever, but The Secret, if people have not read that and don't understand mindset, that is one of the best books ever to change the way that you think and to change the direction of your life if you really implement the tools that are listed in that book. Some other ones I love are How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's another great one. Um, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is another great one. And one that I just read that was a recommendation from a very successful realtor is called The Slight Edge. And that was great as well. Always looking for books to listen to while I'm on a plane, while I'm in the car, even if you go for a walk, take that time instead of scrolling Instagram or, whatever it is, invest in yourself. And here's the other thing that is so important. I don't get involved in anything that doesn't make me money or make me happy. I don't get involved in drama. I don't care what other people are doing. I don't get involved with toxic people. I don't do anything where the conversations are not productive and inspirational or of value in the sense that I don't talk about nonsense. It's just, it's those are the things you need to remove yourself from. Any toxic relationships, anything that's not good for your mindset, your mental health, or your physical health. Get yourself into a place where everything that you're doing feels good. And there are going to be days where you feel like you got, maybe you didn't feel like you got a lot accomplished, or maybe you got the door slammed in your face 5 times. Those are going to be days like that. I have days like that all the time. But it's how you redirect your energy, and it's the support system that you have, whether that be a husband, a boyfriend, your parents, family, whatever. If you do not have a support system at home, it is very hard to get to grow in real estate because it is a tough industry. You're in and out all the time. You don't really know where you are half the time. It's you're in other people's houses. It's something that you really need support from home first and foremost, and your relationships with your friends or your peers. You are like the top 5 people that you hang out with. So who are those people? Are they successful or are they toxic to your life? And that's something that you also need to really take into consideration. And it's okay to take a step back from people that aren't good for you.
That was awesome. When I edit this conversation, I'm going to make a list of everything you just said. I'm going to have that list in bullet points in the show notes for this episode. That was so good.
Oh,
Do you
thank you.
listen to John Lee Dumas, the Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast at all?
I do not.
So JLD started producing a daily business podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire. But I think in 2008, 2010, first, early. Now it just blew up. I won't go into detail. I highly recommend you check out the podcast.
Oh,
The episodes from pre 2020, I think were more value. It's so commercial now. You can write JLD a check for 4 grand to be on his podcast for 20 minutes. So I think he's pretty transparent about that. So, but I think the earlier stuff was of way, way better value. But something that he says at the end of a lot of his conversations is he reminds his listeners that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And he thanks them for spending some time with him and his guest. I think that's such a great point. I'm stoked that you brought that up because that's something that that resonates with me that I try to keep top of mind all the
mhm.
time. Another Brian Buffini, you mentioned Brian Buffini. He's actually a partner, sort of a brand partner with the real estate school that I attended to when I went through pre-licensing. So I recognize that name. He does have a lot of amazing content courses. Um, Probably a great speaker. I've never seen him in person, but I'm sure you could find that somewhere. And the other thing you mentioned was, the concept of referrals and referral partnerships. We keep circling back to that because, as we should, it's so important. A broker I spoke with recently in Asheville, North Carolina. He's based in the Asheville, North Carolina area. He has he's very successful. He's been in the business. He's a young guy. He's been in the business for about 15 years, and he told me, he said when he reached 20 million in annual volume, he had to change something to move the needle to get to 50 million.
Mhm.
And that change was you had mentioned not just networking in your local area, but networking nationally. And that's the change that he made. He started, I won't go into details about, tactically how he made this happen, but long story short is he his current he has one of the top three most valuable listings in North Carolina right now at $25 million. And it was
Mhm.
a referral from a broker in Austin,
Mhm.
Texas, and it would have never happened were it not for his ability and his initiative for reaching out and developing relationships in other parts of the country. So I thought that reminded me of him as soon as you said that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's so important to network with other agents as well. I mean, and that's why it's important to go to these events and
Hmm.
let people know, that you're their go-to and you're more than happy to pay a referral fee. And I know agents that strictly build their business off of referrals with other
Hmm.
agents. That is their that's their little niche market. But getting out there and going to things and investing in your business. I mean, you are building a business. A business costs money to start and get off the ground. And this is probably one of the cheapest investments of, to start a business that you can find. And it also is one of the more lucrative ones. But you got to take those investments to get yourself to these places, to be in front of these people, to make these connections and build these relationships. It's so important. And especially if you want to get into those higher price points.
There's a business coach in Australia, Dale Beaumont, that I listened to a quick seminar he did 4 or 5 years ago, but I'll never forget it. It was 7 or 11 steps to building a referral partnership or building referral partnerships. And the step where he goes through, think of your ideal client, and then who has your ideal clients, and then um, before you wonder what they can do for you,
Mhm.
before you get to that step, you have to think about and analyze and understand what you can do for them before you can ask them to do anything for you. And he used the
Exactly.
analogy. He said before he got married, before he met his wife, he went to a seminar on matchmaking or something. I forget what it was. Some relationship type seminar, how to meet the partner of your dreams. And the instructor was talking about how you've always heard, you want to visualize, you know, who you want that person to be, tall, dark, handsome, blah, blah, blah. And she said, that's all bullshit. She goes,
Mhm.
you have to look at yourself and understand, you have to start making a list of what do you offer? What do you bring to the table? So anyway, that reminded me of that as well. I could digress and digress all day long.
Mhm.
You tell
Mhm.
how excited I am, Dana, about this conversation. This has been really, really awesome. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And I appreciate it. And, this has been a lot of fun and I'm happy to come back and, share whatever nuggets I can that are helpful to other people. And, yeah, it's just, I'm a natural born talker, so I like to talk. So it's certainly, no strain on me. And I really appreciate the time. And hopefully, I gave few takeaways for some people out there.
I think you gave a ton of takeaways. Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it and would love to have you back. Let's circle back again. This is a national podcast, speaking of national networking. So, yeah, hopefully we're going to build an amazing list of brokers across the country that will tune in and listen to this podcast as well. Before we close, share with listeners how they can learn more about you and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on social media at Dana Flanagan on Facebook and LinkedIn, and Dana Flanagan Official on Instagram. And you can shoot me an email at dana@danaflanagan.com. And I'd be more than happy to connect with you as well. So,
I'll have those links, of course, in the show notes for this episode, and I'll include the email address as well. We will certainly tag you on Instagram and Facebook when we release this episode. And again, Dana, thank you so much. Really, really an honor to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much.